As you know, our vehicles today are full of high tech, and much of our diagnostics are high tech as well. We use code readers, scanners, and network communications. All of that high tech is good, and many times it is necessary, but that does not mean that low tech or even no tech doesn't work. If you are into all of that high tech stuff, then this video may not be for you. But if you are a do-it-yourselfer or you don't have all of that high tech stuff, then this video may be just what you need.
This is Dwayne at RealFixItRealFast.com. Today we're working on a 99 Toyota 4Runner with a 3.4 engine. The driver came in and basically said it's just not running right. We took it on a short drive and it feels like it's got a misfire. I'd like to duplicate that for you now. The engine's running, now we're going to load torque the engine. Now you should be able to hear that on the video. It's just a constant, steady misfire. Now this ignition system has a coil over plug. One coil fires two spark plugs. It fires one on this side and one on the other side. So to gain access to all that, we have to take the air box off. When we take the air box off, this also has a mass airflow sensor, but it's down here in the breather box. So when we separate this, there's no way for air to make it into the intake. So without the mass airflow getting air in through the intake, the engine's not going to run unless we unplug the mass airflow sensor. So we're actually going to create a code that's going to set a code for mass airflow, but we know that we created it, we'll clear it later. But with this unplugged, we can actually run the engine. But now we have access to our coils. Now in this system, for example, in this here, we've got one coil. The control comes through here. It also fires this wire which goes over to the other engine, and then when we pull that out, you've got the spark plug booth right there. So this coil fires two spark plugs, one on this side of the engine and one on the other side of the engine. And that's true with all three coils. So we've actually got three coils and three wires that we need to test. Where can that misfire be coming from? A very simple but yet a very accurate way of telling whether or not these spark plug wires are bad, because it could be the wire, could be the coil, or could be the spark plug, is actually to take a little clip like this. Just make it out of mechanics wire. It just kind of looks like an S. So what you want to do here is just pull your boot off, take your mechanics wire that you've made in there. It's made in an S so it'll slip down inside, and then put your boot back on it again. That way you're actually touching the inside, but it brings it out to the outside. Now we've actually put that on all three of these wires. Then you need to take just a regular wire with an alligator clip. We've got it grounded. And we're going to take the other side and just actually touch the tip of these. Now we're going to start the engine. Okay, now we can hear the engine idling. The load only comes, you can hear the engine idling. We only have our misfire under load, so we're going to brake torque it. Now you can hear our misfire. So we're going to take our grounding strap back about right in the button. Now you can see the flame. You can also hear it takes away the contribution. Now basically what we're doing here is pretty much the same thing that you'd be doing with a spark tester like this. It's just quicker and faster. But the other thing is, it gives us the ability to see that flame. As you saw when I had it down here, if I would get very close or I would start backing away, I'd get about that far away and the flame would disappear. Now if we had a bad spark plug wire, that flame would be like what we call a flamethrower. It'd just be a very big bright flame, and you could actually pull this further away and the flame would stay there. So what we found out here, the evidence is that all three of these were about the same. The distance was about the same, and when we pulled away from each one, when we would ground them, you could hear the change in the engine performance. So it was actually telling us that each of the cylinders on the other side of the engine are actually contributing. Now, how are we going to test the coil side? Well, if you look back down here, we can't leave these in here or we're going to get zapped when we do this. So we're going to actually have to pull these out and just put our wires back on, because you don't want to just get yourself electrified here. Now we can test the coils. But if you look down here at the coil, how can we do that? Well, it's basically simple. When it's running, we can just take the coil, take your bolts out, and lift up the coil. Now that's at idle. So now let's load torque it. Okay. Now you can hear the engine misfiring. We're going to take this front one. You can hear the change in the engine. We'll take the middle one. There's no change in the engine. Go back to the back one. You can hear the change in the engine. Back to the middle one. Take it completely out. So this one is our problem. So that's our evidence. The center cylinder on this side, under load, is not contributing to power. Now we've actually got the car running again. And if you look down here, what we've done is pull this coil out. We hooked our spark tester into it, and you can see we're actually jumping the spark across there. Now we're not hitting the spark plug that's down the hole, but this gives us the ability to test this boot. So now we're going to hook up another ground wire. We're tapped into the same source of ground over here. And we're actually going to take this and just run it all up and down this boot. Because a lot of times these boots can have a hole in them, and the spark would jump through the boot ground somewhere. If that were the case, you would find it here. You'd be seeing spark jump all around it. See, when I go right up here, you can see it jumping. Now, if there was a hole in this boot, it would jump through there and arc right across there. So our boot is actually good. We have no problem there. So the next thing, we got to go a little bit deeper. Let's get the spark plug out of there. There's a spark plug. It's kind of black, but that's typical because it has been misfiring. Don't see a lot of problem there. So if we take the spark plug out, then right away we can see our problem. We've got a crack right through the porcelain. Roll it around again. So if you see that on a spark plug, there's a hairline crack right between the porcelain there, and this black is the carbon tracking. The spark is actually coming out somewhere in there and it's traveling right up the porcelain part of the spark plug. Now, if that's the case, remember our boot actually tested good. But oftentimes, the boot is actually bad on the inside, and it's actually traveling on the inside, which is what is creating this. So in this case, what we need to do is change our spark plug and the boot and see if that fixes our problem. No more misfire. Remember, find the evidence and let the evidence lead you to the problem.